Happy Monday, and welcome back to the Lord and Arts channel. I'm John Lorden. Thank you so much for spending some time with us here today. Case Cracked is the show where we look into a mystery and what are the critical pieces that help solve that mystery. Today's case is called Autumn Crocus. Bill and Mary Yoder ran a very successful business in Whitesboro, New York called Whitesboro Medical Practice. Both working as chiropractors, they had served the public for almost 30 years after meeting in college in 1975. They believed that holistic medicine and herbal supplements would keep you in good health, and they practiced what they preached. In their 60s, both were still working, healthy, and active. Mary liked to spend her free time dancing, making pottery, and taking care of her herb garden at home. July 20th, 2015, started like any other Monday. Bill wasn't working that day, but Mary had a full schedule of clients. By the end of the day, at about 4:30 p.m., she started to become ill and went home to rest. First came the vomiting, and then diarrhea, convincing her that she likely had a stomach flu. After a full night's rest, she woke up the next morning feeling worse than the day before, and she was taken to St. Luke's emergency room for treatment and evaluation. At just past the 24-hour mark, many tests had been run, but no one could figure out what was wrong with her. At about 10 p.m. on the 21st, while walking in her room, Mary fell and was admitted to the intensive care unit. Realizing how dire her situation was, Bill called their 3 children and asked them to come to the hospital. As everyone visited, Mary's condition only continued to get worse. On the morning of the 22nd, she had her first heart attack, which was followed by 7 more before her final one that afternoon that ended her life. In just 2 days, Mary had died, and everyone, including her doctors, wanted to know why. An autopsy was ordered, and it found that cardiac arrest had killed her, but surprisingly, they found that her organs and tissue had deteriorated in a way that suggested Mary was actually poisoned. Poison control was called in, and her body was tested for the typical poisons, arsenic or cyanide, which came back negative. For 2 months, the Yoders heard nothing until October, when it was finally found what exactly had killed Mary. She had toxic levels of a drug called colchicine in her system. Made from the autumn crocus flower, its powder is used in the treatment of gout, but poisonous if taken in its absence, and Mary didn't have gout. 3 days after her death, friends and family planned a celebration of life ceremony that was held in Mary's garden at her home. While the Yoders mourned, investigators were hard at work trying to find out how she had ingested this drug in that poisonous dose. First, they looked at her garden, but didn't find any samples of the autumn crocus. Then they looked to the herbal supplements that she took. They were tested and found to be harmless. As they ruled out her ingesting the drug accidentally, it became clear that they were likely looking for a murderer. The medical examiner's office ruled her death a homicide, and an investigation ensued. Sadly, in most homicides involving a married couple, one of the spouses is usually responsible, so investigators started by looking at Bill. The day Mary became ill, Bill wasn't scheduled to come into work, but they had a hard time accounting for his whereabouts. Even more surprisingly, soon after Mary's death, Bill started to date her sister, Kathy. Even though they found this highly suspicious, no evidence of the murder could be found surrounding Bill. The investigation stalled until November, when an anonymous letter arrived at the medical examiner's office. The sheriff's office would receive a letter as well soon after. The writer detailed how Mary had been poisoned by her son, Adam, with colchicine, and evidence of these claims could be found in his car in a specific location. When Adam was approached, he consented to a search, and under the passenger seat of his car, officers found a bottle of the drug, along with a receipt. Adam was confused and surprised. He claimed to have no knowledge of the drug, its purchase, or the email address associated to the purchase, called mradamyoder1990@gmail.com. Believing Mary had been murdered for his inheritance, investigators continued to question Adam. and he again denied any involvement. When he was asked about his whereabouts on the day his mother fell ill, he claimed to have been in Long Island for 5 days around the event, visiting one of his sisters. His sister corroborated his claim, leaving investigators scratching their heads. They then turned to the person who knew Mary and her son best, Adam's on-again, off-again girlfriend, Caitlin Conley. Caitlin had worked for the Yoders for years as their receptionist/office manager and was even listed as a loved one on Mary's obituary. Over the course of 3 interviews, Caitlin was able to offer little in the way of evidence. However, the anonymous letters had been sent in for analysis to the State Police Forensics Lab. The results showed that not only were the letters sent from the Yoder's chiropractic business, but the back of the stamps contained female DNA. Caitlin explained this, stating that in her usual work at the office, she frequently pre-stamps envelopes. She then brought in samples and offered her own DNA for testing. In February of 2016, when investigators were finally able to access the email account, they questioned Adam about it again. Although the address looked similar to some other addresses he used, he reaffirmed it wasn't his account. This seemed to be confirmed when investigators learned the password for the account was, quote, Adam is gay. They decided to bring Caitlin in for a 4th interview and confront her with even more new evidence. As she denied knowledge of the account, investigators asked her point blank if she had written the anonymous letters, to which she replied, yes. She claimed innocence on every piece of evidence brought forward. They then told her that Google had provided them with the IP addresses associated with the fake account. They showed it was created in September of 2014 with the chiropractic office's IP address. It was also accessed by Caitlin's cell phone and at her home. The colchicine had also been bought with a gift card purchased by her. The drug required a business tax form for its purchase. The form was typed with the chiropractic office's typewriter during a time when Caitlin worked there. They also knew that the day Mary fell ill, she was fine until the afternoon. At lunch, she had left the office to run an errand. Investigators believe that Caitlin spiked her protein drink while she was gone, and Mary returned and ingested it, falling sick within the next 3 to 4 hours, just as the poison experts outlined. In May of 2016, Caitlin Conley was arrested and charged with second-degree murder. Her first trial began in April of 2017, with the defense claiming that Mary's killer was actually her husband, Bill Yoder. They stated Mary had found out about his affair with her sister, and Bill had poisoned her protein shake to silence her. The prosecution claimed the killer was Caitlin, and that she had killed Mary to get back at Adam for not committing to her. At the end of a 3-week trial and 5 days of deliberations, the jury came back deadlocked and declared a mistrial. A second trial started the following November. While the prosecution stuck to their original claims, Caitlin's family hired new representation, and they completely changed their approach. This time, they claimed that Adam was solely responsible for the murder because he was toxic and abusive to Caitlin and wanted to frame her as punishment for not continuing to come back to him. They also brought out witnesses that testified that the relationship had been a rocky, sometimes violent one, as well as text messages to support those claims. The prosecution had some new evidence to enter. They were able to show that before the murder, Caitlin plugged her cell phone into Adam's laptop, which created a backup copy of her phone. That copy showed that she had researched poisons and specifically colchicine. Initially, the second jury was unable to reach a decision as well. To help ease the way, they were offered the choice of either charging her with second-degree murder or first-degree manslaughter. On November 6th of 2017, Caitlin Conley was found guilty of first-degree manslaughter, indicating that the jury wasn't sure that she had meant to actually kill Mary, but possibly had just intended to make her sick. She was sentenced to 23 years in prison, followed by 5 years of post-release supervision. In his victim impact statement, Adam said, "I introduced Katie Conley to my family, and because I loved her, they all accepted her and treated her as family, as blood. Make no mistake, I hate the defendant with every bone in my body and every drop of blood in my veins. I hate Caitlin Ann Conley because Caitlin Ann Conley murdered my mother. Caitlin had remained emotionless throughout the proceedings. In her statement to the court, she simply said, "With all due respect to the justice system and to our jury system, I'm innocent, and I would like to thank my family and friends and strangers that are standing up in support of me." Some of the supporters that she's referring to actually included family members of Mary's. Reportedly, they had sided with her first defense attorney and believed that Bill was responsible for committing the murders. Some of them still continue to support Caitlin to this very day. Case cracked. I would like to thank the Fort Worth Star-Telegram, the Utica Observer, Dispatch, NewYorkUpstate.com, Wikipedia, SpectrumLocalNews.com, Fox News, People.com, Dateline NBC's Internet Archive, FreeCaitlinConley.com, and Syracuse.com. Of course, the biggest thank you goes to Christy Arnhart for researching and writing up today's case, and here she is to discuss it with us now. Well, Christy, this one's a little different. Like I'm a little conflicted with it. I know that you have some feelings about it as well. Do you think that she really wanted to kill Mary?
I really don't feel that she did. I've read through some of their correspondence, text messages between her and Adam, and they had a tendency to kind of jerk each other around emotionally.
Yeah.
And his mother becoming ill, at that point they were broke up. That's something that brought them back together at that time. So
it's already sounding like a pretty stressful situation for her to be working at that location, going through this roller coaster ride in terms of that relationship. Like there's a lot of interpersonal connection going there. Plus, I don't know what Caitlin's response or what her relationship was like with Mary. Like, was Mary a boss that she actually enjoyed or someone that, was too hard on her? Yeah, there's just a lot of questions that I'm left with.
Yeah, that's true. I don't know what their relationship was.
Yeah, so it looks like Caitlin has tried to file an appeal on the case.
She did, and they immediately denied it.
Okay. And there's nothing current because that was just in March, right, of this year?
Yeah, there hasn't been anything since then.
Okay. Also, just because I got to talk about this, Bill deciding to date his former sister-in-law. First of all, is it even a former sister-in-law at that point if you've been widowed? Like, it's such a weird line. Yeah,
that's a good question. I don't even know.
Yeah.
I know that during the investigation, police came forward and said that they had started dating before Mary's death. But when you talk to the couple themselves, they say they didn't start seeing each other until months later. So,
well, it's kind of interesting that we have that aspect when they're looking into Bill at the start and they can't really account for where he is on that day. Yeah. Not to say that he's necessarily with Kathy, but maybe there's other relationships or other things that are going on around that. I don't know. But just thinking of going through a loss like that, and I know it could be very traumatic and people will sometimes gravitate towards each other. Like I get the potential for that happening. I just would imagine that it probably wouldn't be a very long-lived relationship. Like it hits me as like an emotional rebound type situation. And but I don't know. We're not hearing that they're married or anything, right?
No. Last I heard they were just dating.
Okay. And this really interesting twist with some of Mary's family members feeling that Caitlin is actually innocent.
Yeah, it's actually some of Mary's sisters.
It's Mary's sisters.
Yeah, not all of them, but some of them.
It makes you wonder if like this is some, because I know things can be tough with in-laws sometimes. And was it already a long-standing thing that they had for Bill in particular, that they didn't like this guy? For who they've been together so long. I mean, maybe it's been decades that they didn't like this guy. Or is it possible because of what happened between him and Kathy that upset the other sisters so much that they're kind of lashing out at both of them? But I don't know. It's a weird place to take it when you're thinking about, so they're going to potentially defend someone that seemingly, even if she didn't want to kill Mary, she poisoned her. Like
Yeah.
she was trying to, at a minimum, make her not feel well. Yeah, I'm really, really struggling with trying to get my head around all that. But I know there's
Yeah, that's a hard one.
this case with interpersonal relationships and the potential tension levels there, you know, on again, off again, girlfriend, working in the family business, husband, dating, sister of wife. Like there's just so many strong chords running through this. I don't
Oh,
know.
yes. Yeah.
I don't even know how you go about analyzing it. You would need to be interviewing all these people and then, you know, asking for a psychiatrist to help you decipher it all. It's, yeah, it's tough.
Yeah.
I saw that you were asking the question in the notes about why would Caitlin have admitted to writing the letters? You want to give us a little more about why you're wondering about that?
Well, it just didn't make any sense to me. They had the letters, they had the proof that they needed. Well, they had most everything that they needed at that point. I almost feel like she was watching the investigation and just didn't like where it was headed. So she threw the anonymous letter in to make sure that Adam got caught.
Yeah.
But other than, I mean, I don't know.
Yeah. And it's so strange for the items to be found in the passenger seat in particular, because obviously what's she going to have easy access to? I mean, if this is the girlfriend, she's sitting in that passenger seat pretty often, pretty regularly. I'm wondering if she knew that the reasoning for like, oh, I pre-licked the envelopes, you know, like I pre-stamped the envelopes, if that wasn't super solid and she was worried that they were going to come up with some other forensic information, like maybe touch DNA off the paper that was actually in the envelope. But she could have tried to run the same excuse. That's one of the strongest points in this whole case from my perspective is the letter, because the letter is letting them know where the items are. And if they don't really have those items connecting to Adam very strongly, and it really doesn't seem like they did.
She tipped her hand so well, though, when she put out these letters. I mean, I wrote them. I knew where everything was. I got it all together. And then they start connecting all the little dots.
Yeah.
And they all led right back to her.
Yeah. You know, the other thing that kind of, you know, I'm always trying to understand like people's actions when we're looking at cases like this. The other thing that I'm baffled by is you effectively, I mean, you didn't quite get off in the first trial, but you were able to bring it to a point where you weren't going to be held responsible for the murder. But then you change your legal team and their approach changes. Like, I don't get that at all. And the new approach of it feels almost spiteful in a way that she wants to prove that Adam is such a terrible person. Almost like she wasn't content with them aiming at Bill in the first run. This time she really wanted to point out Adam is so terrible, and she wanted to introduce all the evidence that she had about whatever bad happened in their relationship. As far as literally she got convicted. Like I mean, if she would have stuck with the first legal team with the first story, who knows if it would have come out this way.
Yeah. I know what sealed it for me was the password.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have seen so many scorned husbands, boyfriends, girlfriends. They do the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah. That's, that was a pretty interesting tell. And especially because she probably figured, and honestly, I didn't even know this before this case. Like if you contact Google and you know, you have a warrant and you're getting information from them, I didn't know that that's something that would come along with the info, you know?
No, I didn't either, but it does.
Yeah. Yeah. Apparently it does, because it played a really important aspect in this case. So you're saying that there's another chance that she might have tried to poison someone else around all this?
Yeah. I found with the Utica Observer in April of 2015, Caitlin had given Adam a supplement called Alpha Brain that was supposed to boost his memory and help him focus during finals.
Okay.
Well, a few days after he took some of the pills, in the late evening, he started to get really sick. He said, I woke up and realized I didn't feel very well. He had diarrhea, vomiting, abdominal pain, which sounds familiar. He spent a little time in the hospital. It took him like a week to recover. And moving forward to the time when he first heard his mother was ill, leading up to her death, he said that he wasn't overly concerned at first because it was the same symptoms he had had before, and he thought she had caught the same bug.
Oh, wow. Wow.
But if you go and look at freecaitlinconley.com,
Yeah.
they say in their reasonable doubt section that the prosecution suggested that Katie tried to poison him with a bottle of Alpha Brain supplements. No trace of colchicine was found in the 28 Alpha Brain pills in the bottle. They were all tested. They say Katie did not tamper with any of the pills in that bottle, like the DA's alluding that she did. So.
Yeah, but that's, I don't know. It kind of leans into that conversation we were having about, we don't know if she was really trying to kill Mary.
Mm-hmm.
Because if that was, like, let's say a test run on Adam, she might have seen the result and just been content with that. Oh, look, it made him sick. And by the way, I really don't like his mom as well. I'm going to do the same thing to her. But there's other things around that. Like, we don't know how he took the pill. Like, did she bring him a glass of water for him to have with the pill? Yeah, maybe she didn't poison the pill. Maybe it was in the fluid that she gave him to drink with the pill. Or, some pills are like, gel caps and stuff like that. You can actually separate them and empty them out and fill them with something else. And if you did go to that length, are you really going to do the rest of the pills in the bottle? I mean,
No, I had that thought too. She puts in enough to see how it's going to react and thinks, wow, that's good.
But... Right. Wow. Really weird. Oh, and finally, we've got a note here. Some of Conley supporters are upset that Bill and Adam were given what they call blanket immunity by prosecution.
Yeah, it's not exactly correct. They were given immunity, but it's not like you see it in the movies. It's actually transactional immunity. So if there's any evidence that comes up in the future that discounts their testimony, then all of that immunity is pulled and they go right into trial and charges.
Okay. But effectively, I mean, it's protecting them from a charge specifically to Mary's death. Mm-hmm. That's kind of what they were offered for. And they testified against Caitlin, obviously.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Wow. Well, Christy, thank you so much for looking into this. Thank you for all your help on today's episode. And I've got some other people to thank right now. Thank you, PayPal supporters Angela Welch-Sola, Sandy Reed, and a special thank you to Sandra Mangle. If you'd like to support the channel, please visit lordandarts.com. There you can sign up for Patreon, sign up for PayPal, buy merchandise, or even just buy us a coffee, like Miss L. Rodriguez did. We know that learning about the mechanisms that help support and find justice in these cases is important to understand the many unsolved cases we also cover, and we really appreciate your support in allowing us to continue doing that. Remember, you can get another Lord and Art story every week on the Seriously Mysterious podcast. A new episode is coming tomorrow and every Tuesday after that. Visit seriouslymysterious.com and remember to subscribe on your favorite podcatchers. Please don't forget, you can also subscribe and hit that bell icon below if you'd like to catch one of our weekly Secret Studio live shows. And, of course, I'll be back with a new Unsolved Mystery for you on Friday, right here on the Lord and Arts channel.